They've got a deep down desire in the gut to do the business. 4 years of planning, I'd suppose. 4 years of guys being frustrated and wanting to do the job.
He's just going to run the ball off the bench. New Zealand look absolutely staggered. They cannot believe it. They have not won the World Cup since 1987.
4 years of trying to get things right.
And the All Blacks have to settle for third or fourth placing.
The biggest upset of Rugby World Cup history. For the All Blacks, heartache and heartbreak.
Very upset, that was our year.
I don't know if we can do it again.
But the job's not done. What else can I say? You just feel, you just don't feel you can do anything.
What you'd worked for so long has come to an end, bang like that. It was pretty tough.
Into the stand, and France are still in the World Cup.
Straight after whistle, you're just sort of gobsmacked. You don't know. You're saying, oh, God, what happened there?
Poor old New Zealand. 4 more years, I'm afraid. 4 more years.
And I've never experienced a dressing shed like that. And I've been coaching for 37 years. So you've got young guys sitting in a cubicle at the Millennium Stadium, facing the back of the cubicle, so they don't have to look at anybody. And you've got a number of them doing that, and there's absolute silence. And you're trying to think, what do you say that's going to make this better? And there's nothing you can say. Absolutely nothing. And I'm saying to myself, you've got to say something. And you come up with the things like, guys, I'm proud of what you've achieved over a long time. We've got to take this on the chin and handle it like men. Then you start to think, media conference, 20 minutes. Obviously, we're disappointed. That's sport, I guess. The guys have been an absolute delight to work with for 4 years, and they've got a huge amount.
A lot of tears from everybody, not just the players, management, everybody, because we've gone there with 4 years of hard work and wanting to win it.
Very upset, that was our year. That was our year. They're a good side, they're a good team.
I was pretty gutted for the team and for New Zealand. I mean, the Rugby World Cups aren't just another sporting event, they are our sort of preeminent sporting event. Yeah, I was really disappointed for them and disappointed for Richie as the captain, having to carry that burden.
I just felt we'd left, we're going home and we hadn't quite done what we thought we were going to do. We hadn't played to our best, and that's what really was the tough part to take, I suppose.
24 hours later, the reality of it all starts to sink in, and you're on your way home, you've got family that are over there, and the players themselves were shattered.
On top of that, what was it going to be like when you got home, because obviously the whole country was disappointed, and I think all those sort of emotions you're sort of like, yeah, this shouldn't be happening, but it has, sort of thing. And
but when we got to Christchurch Airport, there was a number of people there, probably several thousand, and they were hugely supportive. So they welcomed the All Blacks back to New Zealand, and they cheered the players.
To know you got these people that got your back is awesome, so I just say thanks to absolutely everyone.
Yes, hi everyone. Welcome to Reunion. 1 week on, it would be nice to think the kerfuffle about our early exit from the World Cup is dying down.
Still trying to work out what went wrong and to whom and who's to blame. And
I'm surprised that Graham Henry hasn't resigned or been sacked.
Well, I remember, seeing Graham Henry after the 2007 campaign and thinking he won't survive. The rugby public in New Zealand are harsh and you're there to win. And if you don't win, no amount of explaining will get you through it.
Now, the French newspapers were saying that we were robbed. The New Zealand newspapers were saying we choked. I knew that there was people out there in the media who were pretty negative.
He was average at the best. Cardiff, he didn't know what to do, and his best shot wasn't good enough.
In fact, extremely negative and extremely personal, which upset a lot of people who were close to me.
Very difficult, yeah. Very difficult for me, very difficult for the kids. Difficult for Graham's mum, at 90, whatever she was at the time. Yeah, I found it really difficult.
They know their jobs are on the line. New Zealand lose this, they go. It's as simple as that in New Zealand.
The management and the players were hugely supportive. They wanted the coaches to restand, which was the best endorsement you can get. So you coach because you want respect from the guys you coach.
The players had given their guts for us, and we wanted to show that we had something inside us to give back to them and to put our names forward.
I think the best chance they've got of winning this is with me, Wayne and Graham staying together. So I'm in. If the other two are in, I'm in. Because I want to go and win this thing.
And I knew they were looking at me. Are you going to front, Ted? When the shit hits the fan, are you going to front? Because you asked us to do that. And I knew I had to front, because they were all looking at me.
I think in our gut, we probably thought that Robbie would get the job, and I don't think any of us would have begrudged that because of his record and how well he'd done.
I didn't think I'd get the job. I thought they'd appoint Robbie. I went down to the interview in Wellington, had the interview, didn't do the interview well, got too emotional.
I still remember Steve and I didn't have to go to the interview, and Ted did. The phone went that evening and it was Ted saying, "Oh, we're buggered, mate." I said, "Oh well, Ted, at least we've had a crack at it." And he said, "Oh yeah, but the interview didn't go well, and I think we're buggered."
This is Prime News, first at 5:30.
A second chance for Graham Henry. He's been reappointed All Blacks coach despite failing to bring home the Rugby World Cup. Henry admits he made mistakes.
You could have knocked me over with a stick. Or a feather is the word, is it? So it was amazing, really, because I didn't think it would happen.
If you want my honest opinion, I don't think Robbie wanted it anyway. I think Robbie had already signed for Australia. I think he just went through the motions and wanted to be the martyr if he didn't get it. So, he wins on both sides of the table. That's how I felt about it, because you don't go to a selection meeting and when asked who's going to be your running mates, knowing that the guy who's your opposition's got two pretty good candidates behind him with a wishy-washy answer. And he did. And that's why he lost the job, from my understanding. So, did he really want the job?
Some rugby now, and for the first time, a foreigner will coach the Australian rugby team after New Zealander Robbie Deans was today named as John Connolly's replacement at the helm of the Wallabies. Deans will see the team through to the next World Cup after being appointed until the end of the 2011 season.
The opening Bledisloe Cup test in 2008 brings together the two coaches who've been in the limelight for the entire season. Once New Zealand rugby's hierarchy rejected Robbie Deans and held on to Graham Henry, this became the only show in town.
Every now and again, you're going to have a big mountain in front of you, and you've got to climb it. If you don't climb it, you're history. and we got beaten by Robbie. But that's when people get tight and get together and are totally focused and do the business. And we had to do the business at Eden Park the week after Sydney. Otherwise, I think we would have gone.
And freeing it up is Nonu. Now Nonu, he could go all the way.
Everyone wanted to get back on the horse and get things done. And then we did that. And then it was like... We're back. But South Africa gave us a wee bit of a timely tap on the shoulder and said, well, you know, you haven't quite got it right yet, you blokes.
Springboks has taken the victory here. Springboks win again.
It was a tough old year. Like I remember at a point there, especially when we've been beaten after Hamilton, third time in a row by the Boks that year, that I was just like, start questioning yourself, you know, you're the right man for the job type thing. And although you should say you shouldn't have those thoughts, you know, you have to really go, what am I going to do to sort this out, or am I the right person?
I think we're all questioning ourselves. But we didn't have the answers. I think there was probably conflict of philosophy on how you play the game at that point in time, which was good for us, because it made people think. And it brought us together in the finish.
I think people thought we were naive. We were trying to run the ball, we counter-attacked from everywhere when everyone else was playing a kicking game. And we got beaten on the back of trying to play too much, particularly in South Africa. And I'm not sure there was total alignment with the players either about how we were trying to play.
We got together as a group of senior players, the senior 7, and the 6 of the management, and we got up on the crow's nest and set strategy going forward.
I remember Graham discussed, we were wondering why we were starting so badly in tests, and we worked out that from Thursday morning to Saturday night we did nothing with any intensity, which was something like 50 hours, which was just too big a gap. So we had to think, you know, go back to how we're going to play well and start in the test and work our way backwards from there. And so that was one thing that we trialled really successfully on that tour.
End of year tour 209, we're playing the French, the last game in Marseille. And the French were European champions at that point in time and were considered a bloody good side. And we knew it was going to be a huge game, and the French don't even been beaten once in Marseille in history.
It's one of the noisiest stadiums anywhere you'll go.
Look at the face on Richie McCaw. Isn't he ready to play tonight?
We played the game that we wanted to play under the same laws, and it clicked.
Off goes Sivivanu using good speed. Gives it up to Mulsvaliaina, and the fullback is in.
We had a great win, 39-12, and it was on the back of some brilliant attacking play and some brilliant counter-attacking play.
And the boys played outstanding rugby. And attacked from our own 22 at times and scored tries at the other end.
Corey Zane puts the foot down, kick and chase, must score, do score.
If you ever have a complete performance in a rugby game, that was one of the games you look back at, you think, that was a special day.
After that game, it was the first time I saw the spark or the lights go on the players, and they said, yeah, we can play this game, this is the way forward.
That showed that week that what we've got to do every week, and I guess that was where the build-up for the World Cup in 2011 perhaps started. You know, when I look back, that was the time where we were like, right, we've got to get things sorted, and it sort of progressed from there.
By that stage, I think we'd already reflected on the things that, well, I know from my own point of view, that had gone wrong in the World Cup. I was in a reasonable place to accept certain things. Mainly because, you know, my mum died, she had a heart attack due to a lung cancer during the middle of the World Cup, and she died in January, and so that sort of put things in perspective for me. You know, you get over that, you can actually start digging and saying, well, how, you know, this is the solution, but what's actually the issue here? What's the cause of this problem?
You know, we had a lot of meetings. There was a sort of a group, a leadership group that met. I think we'd done it for maybe 2 years leading up to the World Cup. I think this time around we thought, you know, World Cups are different. Let's confront the fact that we've been awful at winning World Cups. There's something different about it. They're not like Tri Nations, they're not like Bledisloe Series. So we were very upfront about that, but we wanted to be real positive and face the challenge and look at it as a challenge and not be daunted by it. You know, think this is something we can do that only one other All Black team has done in history.
You know, experiences like Soweto where we had to come from, you know, a game that we could easily have lost, but to believe and have a group that found a way to win. That was gold when you look 12 months down the track when we were in those sort of situations again.
Israel dead! Oh, what a try!
But also I think we changed over that time, and you know, you can talk about strategy for a long time, but you know, you had guys like Mills Maliaina, Conrad Smith, Daniel Carter, Richie McCaw, Brad Thorne, Andrew Horn, Kevin Mialamu, who were the senior players in the team, the senior leadership group. And we dual managed the All Blacks for 2 years. And the input of those young guys was superb, absolutely superb.
That's what really frustrated me, is the game was there to be taken and we let it slip, and that was probably what annoyed me most, rather than actually you know, losing. It was the manner in which we did.
Yeah, well, Hong Kong, you know, we blew that. It was a game that we could have easily won, and Stevie Donald copped the wrath of, you know, the media and the supporters.
Smashes it up downfield. It's not out, TJ.
He basically gave the ball straight to the Wallabies. Is he good enough to be an All Black?
He's not, to be blunt. That's probably the worst game I've seen him play, and he's the one that I'm pointing the finger at.
It's time to move on and select someone else. He's finished, he's not the answer.
So, you know, yes, that left Australia in a pretty confident position. And they're not a nation that sort of, you know, takes a step back when they're, you know, someone gives them a bit of a pat in the back.
The earthquake was...
And then I heard the sirens and thought, geez, this is bad.
It's not the same, and it won't be for a long, long time.
I was in the Corrie Lounge at Christchurch Airport when it hit. I thought a plane had hit the building initially. You know, the beer fridge exploded, and it was just mayhem. We got taken out of the airport. We stand outside, another one hit. Police came along and said, "You've got to get home because there are deaths in the central city. You've got to go and find your families." And man, I was just terrified. Managed to get a ride home with my nephew, who just happened to be out there, and found my family. That's the first thing the first thing you think of. Find your family and then worry about everything else.
I was actually out at lunch with Richie. He was in like a cast and crutches because he just had his foot surgery, and just in a mall having lunch, and kind of just whacked us around. Like, I kind of stood up and Rico's getting flying off his seat.
Well, the earthquakes definitely changed the norm in Christchurch and for the people that live there.
That's the biggest factor probably, is going away to play footy when your families are at home, and you know, you're in touch all the time, and you're told that we just had a 4.3. Oh, hang on, there's a 3.8. And it just drains you. It affects your sleep. It keeps you emotionally on edge. And we knew that was going to have cost.
On an emotional level, we were quite connected to it as a management group and saying, well, let's make sure these people are right and keep checking on them, and so we really applied that principle a lot.
Like what Darren tried to do with other people's support was just to try and make sure there was strong lines of communication, great support for guys' wives and partners and parents and kids and all those sort of things.
Yeah, it's tough. I just had a new little baby girl. She was only a couple of months old when the quake hit. You never knew what could happen, if you're away. But I guess it's the strength of those people around you who kind of, I guess, help you to do your job and give you the encouragement to get out there and play your best. And I think what we wanted to do for the city and the region, really motivated us.
Those that stayed and decided that they were going to fight it, they just had massive amounts of resilience, and like for me personally, I just was like, well, this ain't going to beat me, there's too much going on here that I want to do and I want to do well.
It was part of what the guys who lived in Christchurch had to handle, and I think it brought us tighter as a team. And I'm not saying it was easy, but it was part of what we played for. We wanted to play for the people of Christchurch, as well as obviously the country, but we just wanted to try and put a smile back on the people's faces in Christchurch.
Tonight on Prime News, Christchurch shaken again. The Rugby World Cup is taken away. This is Prime News.
The few days we spent down in Christchurch trying to decide whether that city could recover enough to host games it was one of the simplest decisions we've ever made, because they clearly couldn't. But it was one of the toughest decisions. It was a very emotive few days.
Just feel pretty gutted, like I think a lot of people will in the city. We understand why you've had to make the call you've made. We will get over it. We're Cantabs, and we're going to find the silver lining in everything. Just give us time.
Yeah, gotcha, mate. A couple of interesting calls on this team.
Welcome to the North Shore Rugby Club for the official naming of the 2011 All Black squad.
It gives me great pleasure to announce the All Black squad for the Investec, Tri-Nations and the test against Fiji in Dunedin, of which the proceeds, of course, will go to the Canterbury earthquake appeal.
I love coming into an All Black camp, regardless of how, how the Hurricanes have gone or whatever team I've been with. And I know, especially those first few weeks, everyone's just, so satisfied to be in the All Blacks finally picked, because there's almost so much debate about who's going to be in the team. And
Colin Slade, Canterbury. Conrad Smith, Wellington.
And it appears that after all the speculation, Colin Slade gets in ahead of Aaron Cruden as backup to Dan Carter.
Yeah, probably not overly surprising, I think, TJ. A lot of debate about that.
Yeah, a lot of thought went into that, and we picked Colin Slade because Aaron Cruden wasn't selected, and Steve Donald obviously wasn't selected. And we picked Colin Slade because he had utility value coming off the bench. We thought that Daniel would play every game, of course. We didn't have a crystal ball.
It was a good feeling, getting back together. It was felt like, right, we're finally on the, we're on the lead up to the World Cup, and it was hugely exciting.
And just playing with guys, you sort of easily forget how good some of the other players are, and when you're even training, running around with them, it's something I love, and I know it was no different that week before that Fiji test.
They have endured devastation, fear and uncertainty. From us all, kia kaha.
And I remember getting quite emotional on the occasion. It was great. And even going down and seeing the guys afterwards and congratulating them on what they were doing, to try and give a buzz back to the Christchurch people in extremely difficult times. And it might have been only a small buzz, but it all helped.
Hashtag Tri-Nations, All Blacks, Springboks. Next.
Yeah, the priorities established by the leadership group and the coaches before that Tri-Nations were really, really clear.
So our number one priority was to make sure that players were going to be in the best physical condition they could be in for the Rugby World Cup. And the second priority was to make a statement.
I do remember those 2 home tests we really targeted the Australia and then South Africa. You know, we wanted to win them and win them well because we knew those were the teams that were going to be coming back to, to the World Cup, and if we could sort of bury them at home when they come back for the World Cup, it would be lingering in the back of their mind.
This is our home. This is where we're going to be playing these guys in a few months' time.
Carter running strongly. Up the middle he goes. He's got Smith with him. He'll do it himself. Now Gilford. He'll be too quick. Corey Jane back to his best. And the All Blacks have given the Springboks a good old-fashioned bath here in Wellington tonight.
Bledisloe is a hugely important trophy for the All Blacks, for this team, and we really wanted to put that away. So that's why the Auckland Test especially was huge.
Will there be a more important game outside the World Cup this year? Not likely.
There was a sense of fear about that side, and like how these guys might actually be better than us, and All Blacks don't like admitting that. That there's another side that. Even if we both play well, they might come out on top. And I think we had that feeling about Australia. They were just that slick and that smart in their form leading up, that we had to be on top of our game, and they were going to be a real threat.
As Carter finds Nonu, away for Simi Batu. And they're only a couple of metres away here, snapped up by Nonu, diving! Martin Nonu!
This is probably our first chance to get an Eden Park crowd and them to go nuts. We just really wanted to, really just stamp our mark, show to them that if you're coming back here later on in the year, it's going to be just as hard.
Off it goes to Simi Batu, and the All Blacks are back. The Bledisloe Cup stays in New Zealand for another year.
It felt like we were playing not too bad. It was pretty satisfying. So, to have not given any teams any little bit at that point was pretty good. A few of us hadn't gone to South Africa for the test in Port Elizabeth, and you could argue the team that was going to be playing right the way through was a great opportunity to have your team get another game together.
We didn't take too many of the Crusaders, which is not the norm for us, but we just felt that by giving them that emotional and mental break away from having to travel and having a bit of family time, that would be good for them.
There's a saying, there's no I in team, but there is in win, and we needed to win. We had to have an individual approach. We needed to look at every person differently and make sure we managed them really well leading up to the Rugby World Cup, otherwise some of them are going to fall over.
If you're not going to play, to not have to travel was quite pretty refreshing mentally, really.
So we tried to gear our selection for them to peak and be available for selection.
Slade, Sonny Bill Williams inside to Gear, beautiful offload to Kahui! Richard
Kahui, we brought him, hadn't played for a long time, played him in a test match in Queen Elizabeth because we think he might be important in the Rugby World Cup. And we had to select the Rugby World Cup team after Port Elizabeth, and that was difficult, a very difficult process.
Plenty of time to 15-0.
Because a lot of the players weren't there, as you can appreciate. A lot of the players are sitting at home, a lot of the senior players.
So the Springboks have the victory, 18 points to 5.
And we had to talk to players who were in Port Elizabeth, who weren't in the Rugby World Cup team, and tell them. And we were jumping on a plane to go to Brisbane.
This year is an exciting one for the All Blacks, as we well know, and also for the whole of New Zealand. And so it gives me great pleasure to announce the All Black squad for the Rugby World Cup 2011.
We had to do that in the middle of the Brisbane Test week, which is not normal. It's not something you want to do, because straight away your mind's off the here and now, and you're looking at the future. And that's how we played in the first half in Brisbane. You know, we played poorly.
Breaks through a couple of tackles. It opens up and Will Gania scores a try for Australia.
The test match in Brisbane was an embarrassment for a long part of the game and lost a couple of key players through injury.
Kieran Reid has not moved at all. A lot of concern about a key player here.
Kieran Reid, you know, I think most people would say he's up there as the best number 8 in the world.
And given the closeness of the World Cup, surely
it's critical.
I felt myself that we had 3 players I wouldn't want to get injured, and Carter was one, Richie was the other one, and Rito was the third one.
Gets rid of one. Radicki Salmo, clear run to the line. Can he get away from them? Salmo, 5 metres, 3 metres, over! What a try! Wallabies, Tri-Nations champions in 2011, and they put a little bit of doubt into the All Blacks' minds heading into the Rugby World Cup.
We had some better realisation in the media and at home, I think, because, oh, gee whiz, you know, we could get beaten in this World Cup, you know, it's not guaranteed, and the Aussies might win it.
So there was concern out there and nervousness from the New Zealand public. Thought the All Blacks had fallen off the rails.
New Zealand, who would have thought, head into the World Cup on the back of 2 losses in the Tri-Nations.
There has never surely been a noise like the one at the moment from Eden Park, and a great moment for rugby in New Zealand.
Well, 24 years was a long time between World Cups and potential victories, and the weight of the nation was clearly on the shoulders of Graham Henry and the team. The country had gone through the Christchurch earthquake and the Pike River mine disaster, so we were looking for good news, we were hoping for great things.
Over 90,000 visitors are either here or on their way to join us for 7 weeks of great festivity, fun and footy.
The realisation that things were starting when you start to see on the news or whatever, teams arriving, and you know they had a few welcome sort of ceremonies for the teams. But it wasn't until the Tongans, when they turned up, and they showed the scenes of what it was like at the airport, and people, you know, I was like, holy smokes, this is what if this is anything to go by, it's going to be a hell of a 6 weeks.
Leading your sports news tonight, it's only one more sleep until the World Cup kicks off. Can you believe it?
I just remember we had that week of amazing weather in Auckland. It was, and I think that added to it. And it was still sort of end of winter, early spring, when weather can do anything. But there was, you know, just great warm weather, and everyone was in a real party atmosphere. And this World Cup that everyone had talked about for so long had finally arrived.
Kia ora, good evening. A Rugby World Cup, which began as an unlikely dream more than a decade ago, is now just a matter of hours away. Tens of thousands.
So many people turned up on the Auckland waterfront, you know, when the tournament actually kicked off. It was a glorious day in Auckland, just a magical day for New Zealand.
Yeah, that viaduct was just, you know, completely full right up to where we were on Hobson Street, quite a way, you know, we're 3 or 4 blocks back from the viaduct, and there was still just crowds, you know, around all the bars and everything.
That first game from our hotel, it was just phenomenal. You know, hearing the music down at the viaduct, listening to the haka being done down there.
When we left the Heritage Hotel, you know, there seemed to be 3,000 or 4,000 people, and they were on each other's shoulders with flags and calling out. That was great for the team, and that happened right through the tournament.
It was absolutely phenomenal, and I think there was a wee bit of gee-whizzing from the team at that point. not quite sure what it was going to be like, and then, man, this is huge.
We knew it was going to be big, but it was, we realised then, I think, just how big it was.
A lot of our guys are extremely nervous, way more nervous than they would normally be. Everyone in our group knew the enormity of the task that we had.
A lot of nervous tension. This is the stage. This is what they've been waiting for.
Getting that game out of the way, I think, was pretty important.
I don't know who wrote the script for this, but it's been fantastic so far.
Incredibly nervous before that first game, and I probably showed it in the performance.
And the Rugby World Cup is underway.
Sometimes a tough game to play, there's so much expectation, and Tonga, they're a team, they had nothing to lose, and they threw everything at us, and it was good in that sense to play a team like that.
We changed our philosophy in this tournament, and so we didn't have grandiose ideas about beating Tonga by 100. We just wanted to perfect our game as a team and as individuals.
Here's a go, here's a try, and guess who?
Who've taken the points here, not convincing, but they've won it nonetheless.
They will reflect on that and perhaps realise that there's still a lot of work to do.
We're not used to seeing New Zealand teams make that many mistakes. What do you put that down to? Is it personnel? Is it the structures, coaching? How do you explain that?
Oh, probably the coaching, I'd imagine.
I think we came up with like 8 key sort of objectives that would help us win the World Cup, and one of the biggest tenets was that we could cope under the pressure, both on and off the field. One of the other key objectives was trying to unite the country behind the team, and that actually almost got to the point of being too much. For example, a lot of events that were what I would say typically minor for us in a week became major, so going to an airport became a major event. We had to plan it and so on. We couldn't just arrive and jump on a plane. We'd have literally thousands of people there. So those things all added in. What it did, it just added another layer of intensity off the field that we normally wouldn't have.
From the start, we just said this is going to be fun. We need to enjoy this. When you try to hide away from it, that's when the lingering doubts really come alive. During a game, and that's what we didn't want. And we based ourselves in town. We let it. The partying was going on right outside. You couldn't sleep some nights because it was so loud. And I remember walking down the viaduct, soaked it up, and realised just how massive this thing was going to be. And yeah, I think as a whole we did a lot of public events. They were getting humongous, tens of thousands of people turning up to those, and yeah, it was good for the team. It did bring pressure, and you realise there's times I was just thinking, man, we've got to win this.
The World Cup itself, I think, is one of my proudest moments in rugby, I think. Because I thought New Zealand stood up and were counted as a nation. Here's a small little country opening its doors and arms and its schools and its clubhouses and its homes to everybody around the world, just because of the game of rugby.
These are for you to take home from Palmerston North. Thank you so much for coming. I'll have a cuddle.
Oh.
after the second half performance against Tonga, the All Blacks need to step up.
From the Tonga game, there was a lot of areas we thought we'd need to tidy up on, and we had changed a few things prior to the World Cup. Obviously, we wanted to be a team that, you know, kept evolving our game. You know, these other teams are going to start playing better, and they'll catch us if we try and sit still and use the same tactics.
Big thing is not to get in front of yourself. Like, you just got to, as much as anyone else wants to talk about what's happening down the track, you just can't afford to get carried away with what's in front of you.
And off goes Big Sonny Bill, still going.
We had an overall objective for the tournament, the team improving certain aspects of the game and individuals being given an opportunity to do their thing.
Nonu will get the try, set up by Sonny Bill.
Sonny gave us some utility value. He played on the wing, and he's obviously a marvellous athlete with great skill.
Sonny Bill, first try. Kahui for the corner, gets it off to Ellis. Slade, Thompson, he's got all the pace in the world, Adam Thompson.
My son was there, right? My oldest son, Matthew, said it's the greatest sporting occasion he's ever been to.
I swear we were in Dublin with that crowd.
I felt it was absolutely sensational. It turned the World Cup from being something where you thought there was the Southern Hemisphere, the Tri-Nations Big Three, and then who's the bolter from Europe?
Game is over, and Ireland have caused a big upset.
Suddenly, this tournament, it just veered away and you had a southern and a northern run.
Intercept! This could go all the way!
It was just a good reminder, I think, for, you know, the team and probably the public even more, that, you know, these Northern Hemisphere sides, a World Cup's designed for them. They can knock, you know, one of these teams, one of us over and never meet us again. You know, that's they can make history and they play that sort of game, you know, where they get a sniff, hard to put away.
The moment Ireland beat Australia, you felt Europe will be having someone in the final. I just thought it was a question of Ireland or Wales. And of course, from the All Blacks perspective, it made life look more awkward because the Aussies suddenly were thrown into their side.
And I was sort of thinking, wow, this is going to change things a little bit.
As well. Now, of course, that result has major ramifications for the tournament, especially when we get to play.
In terms of how it would factor in later, you know, I didn't think a whole lot about it. You just, by that stage, World Cup, you're into it. You're just, you know, you're ready to play, you know, anyone. And as those sort of results showed, it wasn't as if there was going to be easy games anyway.
And this will set off giant celebrations around the rugby world.
Such a great game to look forward to when you consider the history between these two sides, particularly at World Cups.
For once we were going in there with, well, you know, who's actually going to win this game? And there was a lot of talk about how the French were going to beat us.
The All Blacks in France. So you really think that the French can have a pop at the All Blacks?
Yeah, I do. I think structurally they picked a team.
We had a real good attitude for that game and we built up for it strongly. We were in Christchurch. We had huge reason to deliver a good performance. We really felt for the people. We connected with the people of Christchurch, even the guys that weren't from Christchurch, because there were a couple of quakes while we were there, and you know, we met with some of the people who had lost family members. Hugely emotional time. They came to training. I still remember running over with Kevi Milamu, who took us over to the families and said, thanked them for coming and said, we're going to go and train now. You just access any part of the field you want to. When we're finished, we always will come over and we'll spend the next couple of hours together. And I was quite struck by the fact that those families even wanted to come along to training, and it just reinforced how much it meant to people. And when you're in the environment, sometimes you take that for granted, but when you could see it for these families, what it meant, and a lot of tears shed at that session, and after that session, it was a great leveller for us, a great way to ground ourselves, and we went into that French game with huge will to do well for those people.
Richie McCaw tonight, 100 test matches, remarkable career it has been. Carter works it across to Nonu, coming from deep. Nonu's clear. What a sidestep. Now Carter away for Dag, and a try for Adam Thompson.
I thought we played bloody well, particularly for periods of that game where we took them apart.
Wepu lobs the pass beautifully for Corey Jane, and the little wing is off. Corey Jane, what a try that is!
So I was pleased with the French round robin game, but the French are pretty shrewd and pretty sharp, and they had thought this through and thought, we can beat the All Blacks once if we play them twice.
Stepping is Dag, still stepping! Oh, brilliant! Absolutely brilliant! So the All Blacks have beaten the French here at Eden Park by 37-17.
French had made the comment, we won't beat All Blacks twice in New Zealand, so it might as well be the final. And they were saying in the change room afterwards, we'll see you in the final. And, you know, when there's limited English, you know, when you say that, you know, I was sort of like, I remember one part of me was like, wouldn't surprise me type thing. So
I'm thinking to myself, we've got to make it, and you're sitting here telling us you're already in it and we've just beaten you. You know, it was a funny feeling.
It was special afterwards because Jock and Richie were together, and Jock and Richie had huge empathy. Both All Black captains, both played number 7.
And a very special player, and that player, of course, is Richie McCaw.
In another way, it was, you know, sort of full of sadness. He was this great player, this very strong man who, you know, was obviously suffering.
And to achieve 100 test matches, you need to be an outstanding person.
There was also a really nice sort of softness about it all. I mean, we look at our All Blacks and they look like they were in a car accident once they finished the test match on Saturday night. The big, strong fellas, and they don't give an inch. But he was this sort of really affectionate moment between sort of Richie and Jock.
100 test matches.
I thought the big boys came out to play that night too. You know, DC was right up for it. And he knew that it was one of the key games in the tournament and played accordingly.
Well, Dan Carter's whole life at that point, everything he did was aimed at him being in the best nick of his life, coming into the quarter-final, semi-final, final, and that French game was just part of that. You know, where he hit his straps, he took over, he ran at the line, he kicked, he got us going forward, and he was the Dan Carter that, you know, we all know and love. And I guess we all had a feeling that with Daniel Carter on our team playing like that on our home track, we were going to be hard to bowl.
Tonight on Prime News, the nightmare scenario as Dan Carter's forced out of the World Cup. But
Dan Carter out of Rugby World Cup. A crippling blow for the All Blacks. It felt like someone had died. This nation would come to a halt. I don't think New Zealand can win this World Cup.
Dan Carter's injured and then he's out. The Dan Carter injury crisis.
The Carter crisis.
Dan Carter.
Daniel Carter. Dan Carter. Dan Carter. Yeah. Dan Carter. Dan Carter. Dan Carter.
Geez, I still remember that day before Canada. He said to me after training, Smithy, I'll just have 4 shots at goal. 4 shots at goal, that's all. He was captain, remember, moving to that Canada game, so it was a massive occasion for him.
Only too happy to fill in, which is a pretty special moment, for myself to lead the All Blacks.
Something that he'd earned, and was really, really proud of. So I got behind the post. First kick went over, but he didn't hit it very well, and I thought, geez, that wasn't the best. I thought he'd scuffed the ground. And next kick, similar. And I thought, yeah, maybe the next one will come right. Next kick was pretty similar. And then his last kick.
I just heard him scream, and I looked round.
And I knew as soon as he'd done it, he was history.
And then he sort of just kept rolling around, and I sort of looked over, and because Wayne Smith was down catching us, and he's a hard man to hide his emotions, and he had sort of dropped his head, and I knew he looked worried.
And I heard the moaning, and man, I just felt sick in my stomach. Conrad Smith had come over. We had a look, and oh, geez. Medical people came over, took him into the medical room, tried to, you know, we need to get him out of there to reduce the effect it had on the team. You know, we're a family and people feel for each other, and you know, we just need to get him out of there and reduce that impact. I got back to the hotel and I just lay on the bed and said, I'm not going anywhere. I just felt sick. So I then went into Daniel's room. I think Richie might have been there at the time. I didn't know what to say, Daniel didn't know what to say. We just sat there for about 20 minutes.
So gutted for him, you know, he'd put so much effort into being ready to play in that tournament, and then to see him just gone like that, geez, I didn't know what to say to the guy.
I remember Ted then pulled us all into the changing rooms, and it was a masterstroke of the man. He just said, because obviously at that time, especially some of the young guys, you know, you just start thinking, man, we've lost our, one of our key players, and he just pulled everyone in.
And I remember going into the dressing shed at Rugby Park and talking to the guys and saying, we've had a major, the unexpected has happened, and guys, we are going to handle this. And we talked about Colin Slade, and Colin, that we believed in him, and we're all going to step up and play another 5% for Daniel, and we're going to get through this thing.
Stand charged. For some reason, Colin Slade decided he wanted to kick it.
We had a philosophy or a strategy that things are going to happen that we've got no control of, and we just got to handle it. Expect the unexpected and handle it. So when Dan Carter ripped the adductor tendon off the bone in Wellington in preparation for the final round robin game against the Canadians, that was a major.
Slade, clean break by Slade. Now can he link up? A long pass to Guildford. Guildford with pace. Dang is there.
I felt we did remarkably well in that game. You know, we played reasonably well. We put a lot of points on them, and probably it was a better performance than what I would have imagined with such an event happening.
And the All Blacks will still be reeling, no doubt, from the announcement made at 10 o'clock this morning.
It was good to probably go through that, because it happened again. You know, it was only the start, really.
We are heading into the quarterfinals. Sunday, October 9, New Zealand, Argentina.
The tension now goes up another ratchet gear.
You just realise every team is going to have their big day at some point, you know, and we've got to make sure that, you know, especially we get through the pool games, but when it comes to knockout rugby, there'll be a moment where it comes down to one or two decisions, one or two moments that'll be the difference between you going home or winning the thing.
And New Zealand have yet again failed, this time not even at the penultimate hurdle.
We had to really look closely at knockout football and what that meant and how we prepared for that. How we, especially emotionally and mentally, how we prepared for those types of occasions. And you know, to be honest, Brad Thorne, sort of coined the phrase that, the quarter-final, well, that'll be my grand final. If we win that, then next week it'll be on my next grand final. And, in Brad's own sort of silly way, but that became a real mantra for the team.
I find it real refreshing. It's, let's do the business or I'll see you later. And to me, I find that exciting.
New Zealand have got a history of panicking when things go wrong, and if it starts going wrong, the question has to be asked.
We had plans for if we had to get drop goals. We had plans for if things didn't go our way. We actually planned for the worst, and then you always had something to go to. And I think perhaps in 07 we didn't quite grasp that. We thought we did, but we didn't quite grasp what it was going to be like when it really got tough.
What was McAllister doing? Why have a drop goal near the halfway line? What's he doing?
We might as well cut to the chase. The performance of Colin Slade, it's what everyone was talking about. I mean, what did you make of his effort, Stuart?
He felt the pressure, you could see that. He's charged down 49 seconds into the game. It's an absolute nightmare.
The unfortunate thing for the All Blacks is these guys aren't Dan Carter.
Oh, this is the most desperate thing. How does Colin Slade feel?
As a forward pack, we probably from then on really took it on ourselves to lead this team around the field and play a different style of footy, but play a more forward pack orientated style where we really lead the team.
And guys have been supporting me all week, and the preparation's been good, and I suppose it's with DC going down, there's a loss of leadership there, but other guys have stepped up and they'll have to continue to do so.
Conrad really stepped into that leadership role and ran that back line on the field and off it. Showed real, I thought, experience and accountability to performance of the team, and he was a major contributor, I felt, to the success.
We also had visitors, we had Jock Hobbs, was an absolutely amazing man. I remember talking to the troops and saying, he just talked about his challenge with his illness, and he just said to them, all I try and do, guys, is get out of bed each morning and try and be the best I can be. I try and be world class. I'm not, but I try and be world class. And I think that was really inspirational to the boys.
Argentina stay alive. They win a thriller.
The passion of this team and the courage of this team show the pride of wearing the shirt will come through hopefully on the weekend, and we will step up our game, raise our level and our pace and everything. I think we have a good chance of beating the All Blacks.
We just looked at Argentina and we just knew they were a difficult side to play. No one, regardless of who they had played, no one had really put them away. Even the games they lost, they were always close games, and they kick a lot of ball, but they just stay in the fight.
Once we settled down to analyse them, I was actually quite surprised about how good they were out wide. Rodriguez, Amarosino, Agula, guys like that were actually quite impressive during the tournament. You remember Amarosino's try against Scotland. So they were a bit more of a challenge than what most people gave them credit for, and they proved to be.
Graham, what was your reaction in the build-up to the game of this importance to have a couple of players involved in a drinking incident?
I've dealt with that and we've moved on. I was just bloody stupid. Now they didn't do anything particularly bad, but they made a bad decision. Made a real bad decision.
I personally was really annoyed at that. I was annoyed at the boys, clearly. I just couldn't understand it at that stage in the tournament. I was annoyed at the fact that I read about it in the paper and hadn't known about it.
So they didn't have to come and see me. And they would have been a wee bit worried about seeing the headmaster. But they had to front the 7 leaders and explain their situation. And they were packing it. And they explained their situation to the 7 leaders, and then they had to apologise to the full 28.
To me, the measure of what happened in that incident was the performance of those 2 players, because they felt it more than anyone that they'd really let them. They truly felt that they'd let their boys down.
So out comes Mills Muliaina in his 100th Test match, and a standing ovation for him as well. The Pumas stood their ground, accepted the challenge. Senatori striding his way through, and he's got a real opportunity. Fullback Rodriguez going for the line, and the try is scored.
It was a pretty stiff test, and the players were pretty sore after that game, so that's always a good measure of how the opposition have played.
Is the 10 jersey of poison chalice at the moment for the All Blacks, or what? Because here's a bloke who was thinking about being in Fiji on holiday about a week ago, Aaron Cruden.
I think Corey Jane, if he wasn't player of the match, I think he would have been second behind Piri in that game, because he was sensational. And I thought after the match, well, what better way to show how much it means and to repay your mates.
Kieran Reid making a welcome return to the starting lineup today.
Oh, he's a world-class player, he's a quality player and a quality person who adds to our intellectual capacity on the field, and we didn't have a world-class number 8.
I think most people would say he's up there as the best player in the world or close to it.
He's got a big future as a leader, I think.
And diving into the corner is Kieran Reid.
South Africa were playing Australia in the quarter-final in Wellington, just prior to us playing Argentina in a quarter-final in Auckland. And the players didn't know the result of the South African-Australian game until we came off the field in the Argentinian game. And I was hoping that we'd play South Africa in the semi-final, because I thought they'd be easier than Australia. I could well be wrong, but that's how I felt. And we're walking into the dressing shed and saying to the troops, you're playing Australia semi-final here next Saturday. And they were delighted. They were whooping. They were up. I thought, gee, we're beating Australia already.
Tonight on Prime News, Captain Fantastic throws a scare into the All Blacks camp. Richie McCaw struck down by an old injury.
Expect the unexpected and handle it.
Concern grows for Richie McCaw's injured foot.
We're trying to send out positive messages, but no one wanted to believe them.
He's not that okay. He hasn't been training, Ian. He hasn't been training because he's having injections in his foot. That is not okay.
I knew he was doing it really tough, to be honest. He instills a bit of confidence in yourself. He just says that he'll just carry on and do it. So
foot's good. Yep, no, really good. Yeah, it was sore, but adrenaline's a great painkiller. When you got in a World Cup, if you're ever going to play under, with things, that'd be the time you'd get out and do it. And I don't know, everyone at times plays with a bit of pain.
So he broke the little metatarsal of his foot, and he didn't train for a month. So the worst nightmare that you could imagine, the 2 senior pros, Carter and McCaw, both have major injury.
Colin Slade suffered a partial tear of his left adductor. We don't really have long enough to rehabilitate him to be able to take any part in the tournament from here on in.
I was horribly nervous. I was, and I think in the background, what added it to it for me personally, we'd lost Dan obviously a few weeks before. We'd also lost Slady, and when those 2 went down, it became pretty lonely. So Aaron was coming into first 5 by that stage, and we weren't going to burden him with a lot of the strategy.
I've brought some new stuff in, so yeah, it's just getting my head around that, and everyone's really helping me out with getting my head around it.
from a team point of view, we had to just say, well, we're not going to use any of this as an excuse. We just get on with it, and as we said, we'll get challenges, and it's a team. Every team gets it, whoever deals with them the best, and that was what had to be led from Ted and coaches and the rest of us. Not show any sort of disappointment. You just had to say, well, let's get on with it.
Semi-final of the World Cup against a side that we respected. We knew that they had the ingredients in that side to embarrass us, to beat us.
When I first started playing in Australia, we had a really good interaction with the players, and then, I don't know, for whatever reason, it sort of got a little bit strained in the years, and I suppose particular individuals, Richie's little spat with the F10 sort of added to things, and there was just a lot of that behind the scenes.
I think the players think, who do you think you are carrying on like that? It's not the way New Zealanders, All Blacks behave.
Oh, knee, yeah, Cooper. Yeah, little feud continues.
I'm not going to change that game just because we're playing at Eden Park or just against the All Blacks. So I'm going to go out there with the same mindset.
Definitely, when your skipper has been, given a bit of treatment that you think, isn't right, and there's guys in this group who want to make sure that we can, do it right for him on weekends.
Once New Zealand Rugby's hierarchy rejected Robbie Deans and held on to Graham Henry, this became the only show in town.
It's never been personal for me. It could be Julia Gillard coaching Australia, as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter. It happened to be Robbie Deans.
Not only are they expected to win this match, but then the next one as well. So I mean, there is a hell of a lot of expectation. Just what that does to them, I'm not sure, but you definitely know it's there.
I thought Aussies had a chance because of Carter's absence, the problems that New Zealand had at half-back, the indecision, what they did there, and the fact that Richie McCaw was clearly not 100% because of injury, and I thought this guy Pocock is a magnificent player. I think if Pocock takes McCaw out, we could have the shock of the tournament.
It's unique. We're not just going to roll into this. There was this fear, like in the days leading up, like, man, some of the plays that we'd come up with, are they going to work? And added to this was the fact that Australian teams had played so well. They'd beaten us the last time we played, and they were just the last team we would have wanted to lose to at that tournament. That if anyone was going to spoil the party that was happening around the World Cup, it was almost too horrible to think of that they could beat us.
It was the ideal fixture to peak in. One, because of the history of the Rugby World Cup, and two, because it was Australia.
I remember waking up that morning and thought, well, for a semi-final against Aussie, would I want to do anything more, or if I had more time? And I was like, nah, I'm ready. And I think that's the way the team felt. So.
New Zealand have got a history of panicking when things go wrong.
They carry the hopes of their public.
They know what it means to this country.
The nation expects, I can't wait for this game.
A challenge for these fierce rivals from opposite sides of the Tasman Sea. Massive crowd at Eden Park to greet them. And Quade Cooper starts the match at Eden Park with a mistake.
From the very kick-off, they kicked it out over the sideline. We had a mid scrum on halfway, and then I think Pity went just the move that we'd practiced, and he put it right in the corner.
Oh, what a great start. The man they call Mr. Fix-It, Pity Weepu.
Suddenly they were 5 metres out. The crowd was brilliant. They were so loud. And I think even then you'd never, obviously that early in the game, there was literally only probably a minute or two on the clock, but everything was just working out, and the feeling, the buzz, and the players, and you know, we were up for that game.
For them, you know, they probably thought, wow, here they come.
Israel had sat there stewing. He was pretty uptight, I felt, that week of the Australian test, because he knew he had to perform, and the players knew he had to perform.
Israel Dagg for the first time finds space. Dagg gets it away to Jane. Kick ahead. James O'Connor's going to try and get it out of the end goal. He can't. Now Guinea puts it high.
So it happened, you know, a few went up. I think that our reaction was, well, I'll stop that now, because we'd hurt them several times off it. But it just kept coming, and we just kept defusing them and playing off them.
Truden runs, wafts through the gap. Truden!
I'm proud about the way the guys handled the game, their total efficiency.
Drop kick, it's over!
Their brilliance in defence.
Almost to the line. Kano's manhandled him.
Not giving the Australians a sniff, not giving them an opportunity. Like the try is just the icing on the cake.
Dagg up in the line, little show of the ball. Dagg! Infield to Nonu! First try to the All Blacks! Dagg, brilliant!
Israel in that semi-final was out of this world. You know, he played the best game he's ever played in his life.
Israel Dagg, could you start better? Ever in a test match with so much pressure.
I remember them attacking for, you know, tight wave after wave, and we were just getting up. There was just 15 guys up on their feet every time, and almost fighting it over each other to who wanted to make the tackle. You know, it's you know, that's when you know you're playing really well.
And the call came out of after 3 weeks of no rugby training. Everyone's telling us the Pocock's the greatest number 7 in the world, and he completely outplayed it.
And Weepu's over the ball. This could be a penalty for the All Blacks. Oh, great start. Billy Weepu, he'll give himself a shot at goal.
The way he played against Guinea, he was hugely influential, and I think that's his greatest test match he's had for the All Blacks. And you can't ask any more. In the biggest moment, at the time when you most needed your front up, but that's all you can do, and that's what he did. And I think for a short period of time, he became the best in the world.
Into touch, it's all over. The All Blacks are into the World Cup final.
We were almost men possessed. It was a you know, a great game to be a part of in the end.
That game, I think, was as complete as any that we'd played under pressure in our 8 years.
That's what you aim for, and every now and again you get it, and that's a special feeling. And when it's the semi-final of a Rugby World Cup at Eden Park, there's no greater feeling.
It was sort of like at the end of that game, I was like, oh, that should be it. We're going to have to do this again.
They can't wait to get it into touch. They do so. France go to the final. Joy for the French. Heartbreak for the Welsh.
It'll be a New Zealand-France final, just as it was back in 1987.
Everybody's waiting out the French team at the moment.
We were just talking about that just before we sat down, actually. There's a lot of media here today. I don't know how many cameras there are. There's quite a few.
Suddenly, in the middle of the World Cup, Piriwepu's become Mr. Fix-It. And there's these T-shirts with "Don't Panic, Piri's on." He's become the new overnight cult figure in New Zealand rugby.
Yeah, "Keep Calm, Piri's on" is a bit what that epitomises him. And the players enjoy "Keep Calm, Piri's on." They enjoy him being on the field because he's a very composed player and he's a very good decision maker and he can see things that other people can't see. And the players have got confidence in him.
Leading your sports news tonight, comebacks. All Blacks injury call-up. Stephen Donald and Jose Aguirre made their first World Cup media appearances today.
No one was more surprised to be there than Donald.
Is he good enough?
He's finished, he's not the answer.
You know, like everyone else, just enjoyed watching the World Cup, and now, you know, obviously watched it thinking, geez, I'd love to be a part of it, and now that opportunity potentially is here, so I don't know, for me it's just excitement.
He was on the radar, but he wasn't in the wider training group, hence he was whitebaiting somewhere down the Waikato River.
And he rang me and I said, "Beaver, what are you up to?" He said, "I'm whitebaiting, Ted." I said, "How much you got?" He said, "I've got about 8 kilos. I said, "That's a shitload of whitebait, Beaver." I said, "If you bring that whitebait into the Heritage Hotel room 336, you'll play in the final of the Rugby World Cup."
It's tough to back up those peak performances week after week, and you know, we'd come off a lot of energy had gone into that last week. We had to make sure we prepared to do it again.
We had to balance the recovery with getting ready for the test match strategically. So you got to do a certain amount on the field, but recovery was a massive thing. Richie wasn't training at all. He'd become part of the coaching team at that point, apart from the game day when he was consistently magnificent. Don't know how, but just incredible will, I think.
You do have to get over that hump, and it's difficult. You've got to get over that hump of mentally taking yourself into a really, really dark place to be able to get up and perform. And that, when you talk about people like McCaw, that's what makes him so amazing, because he does it so regularly. And he can do it regardless of who we're playing against. But not everybody has that.
It's a tough thing to do, back up a performance like that with another big one, which we knew we were going to need against a French team, which in a lot of ways, motivation-wise, had it all running for them, really.
You talk to the French management and they were saying the French agents are in the hotel, they won't talk to so-and-so, they won't do this. The whole thing just seemed to be imploded.
I'm not sure, really. I suppose because I asked the players not to go out, and I learned a little later that some of them did. We spoke about this morning, and I told them what I thought of them, that sometimes they can be selfish, egotistical, ill-disciplined, and they complain all the time.
We had a photo of their team room, and it was plastered with media articles about how they were cowardly, how they were a disgrace to their country, how they were the worst French team ever. And we could just imagine them sitting there getting that all day. You know, you'd be prepared to die for your country if you went out under those conditions. You had to prove yourself to that extent.
So they gave the French the ideal environment, the ideal team talk. Willie came to one of our dinners prior to the final, and he talked about flushing out the enemy. So the enemy were in strongholds and they had to flush them out and get rid of them. And your life's at stake. And if you make a mistake, you're dead. And the timing to do that, and the explosiveness that you need to do that, and the team thing. So if one of your mates lets you down, you're all dead. Well, you had guys sitting in the front row and their eyes were sticking out on stalks, you know, the Franks boys and company. And he was brilliant. Like, he wanted to play. Willie wanted to play. He was on his toes. He was all energy and explosiveness. He was outstanding. 24 years is a long time for a country that is absolutely fanatical about the game.
The first time I remember watching the All Blacks play on TV, what I really remember was the '87 World Cup. I watched that final, I remember, and Mum always tells a story. I was out doing the haka and stuff and sort of only watched bits of it, but I remember pretending to be John Kirwan scoring that try he scored and stuff like that. And you know, what, 24 years later, here I am, same place, you know, playing the same game. So, you know, you think about that, you think, you just pinch yourself how, you know, how lucky you are.
You could feel this pressure and all the baloney from 6 weeks earlier about it's about the tournament, it's not about who's winning. We'd got down to the final, it was New Zealand in it. It was only about winning by this stage. And suddenly the whole nation couldn't hide what had been behind the mask for 6 weeks. And you could, if you were in New Zealand, you could really feel the tension yourself.
Suddenly it was upon us, and just tried to get out of the hotel a little bit, but you know, it's there was just people everywhere by that stage. It was, you couldn't escape it no matter where you went.
You find yourself getting up and checking your bag that you've got it all sorted, you know, a few times and things like that.
We went out to do some line-outs at about 3 o'clock or something. And there was thousands of people standing around the hotel even then. I just remember thinking, wow, is this sort of, we're going to have to go and play games soon.
This is Prime News, first at 5:30.
Kia ora, good evening. The All Blacks carry the hopes of a nation and the burden of history into tonight's Rugby World Cup final. And in just a few hours, a question posed every 4 years will have its answer. Will this be New Zealand's time, or as they have before, will France find something special to once again break Kiwi hearts? Fan zones across.
And then we went to get on the bus to go to the ground. The whole street was just chocker. And we walk out and just going, wow. I hope when we come back they've all got a smile on their faces.
Extraordinary trip to the ground. I don't think I've ever, you know, coming up to the corner of, coming off Ponsonby Road onto Karangapi Road on that corner there, I don't think I've ever seen, you know, that level of support ever. You know, the road actually went from, you know, 3 lanes wide to just bus width. It was just about brought me to tears, to be honest, you know.
It was just all black, and it was just a massive amount of support, and yeah, I was lapping it up. It was great.
The support of the World Cup and the support of the team, the All Blacks, was very special, and the boys are very appreciative of that, and that's very emotional too. You got thousands of people lining the streets. Some are lucky enough to have tickets, some who have not. All in black, all in New Zealand gear, all charging behind the team.
This is a nervous excitement. A World Cup final doesn't come around very often, and this team, well, they could silence a lot of critics tonight.
And I said to Smithy, what's wrong with Piri? He said, I don't know, Ted. They thought what he doesn't know won't hurt him. But he'd strained the adductor in the warm-up. So when he came to kick in the final, he was sore. And that was a major.
Eden Park was, you know, it was special. It was a cauldron, and it gave us, you know, a real sense that, you know, this is meant to be. You know, we've got to win this thing.
Seeing shivers down my spine thinking about it now. I think at the time I tried not to get too caught up in all the emotion of you know, how I'm playing in a World Cup final. You know, probably the one game that if you ever wanted to play, and that'd be the one for the All Blacks.
I remember the anthem, and you know, almost choking up, just thinking, this is massive. You know, this is the day we've waited for.
crowd in great voice early. Good tackle, well and truly done. And offside against France. Well, goal kicking is going to be a big part of this final, one would imagine. Crampton.
I remember when we weren't getting the points that I thought we should have got early in the game.
Oh, that's way to the right.
And they were hanging in there, and you could see them sort of get a lot of belief out of that. You know, there was a few of us that just kept looking at each other thinking, yeah, this is exactly what we prepared for.
Whenever pressure went on the final, Richie Kahui in particular, he diffused a lot of pressure kicks in that final. I don't think he dropped one. You know, they called themselves the bomb squad because they diffused the bombs, and that's what they did at critical times under pressure.
And the throw is good. Comes it off top. Tony Woodcock. There's the first try of the final. What a move.
They try and drag him back and drag him forward and create an opening in the middle, and you pop someone coming around through the middle and drop the ball down to him, and he scores. So it's like dunking your tea back.
The All Blacks have a player down, and it's Aaron Cruden. And well, cometh the hour, cometh the man.
Number 4, 5'8" for the All Blacks. It's been a jinx position.
Off goes Trenduk. A lot of space. Trenduk still going. Penalty though. Now, who's going to do the goal kicking?
Stephen Donald striding forward.
And the White Boat King came on, and
I love the cheer he's getting from this crowd at Eden Park.
a lot of people will remember his jersey being too short, so he looked a wee bit, but it didn't bother him.
It's as big a kick as you'll ever get.
And he bowled up, took the kick. The rest was history.
He kicked it, and to me it looked like it was going straight at the upright. He'd turned around and taken off back. He ran past me, and I was still looking. I'm like, gee, he's obviously certain it's going over, but. As the game wore on, especially in the second half, when they scored, all of a sudden you could see the belief in their eyes that, you know, there's a good chance they could win this.
Du Sartois, the captain. France are back.
They just kept throwing the storm at us, you know. They just kept coming and kept coming and kept coming, and it became, you know, a game of attrition. It was brutal.
At the game, you could have had a pin drop.
You know, definitely I can say that was the hardest game I've played in my life.
You just got to place your trust and your faith in these guys who are playing their hearts out for you.
The big thing is be calm, you know. Well, first of all, me being calm.
Scrum, too many players, one scrum. Oh, this game is on an absolute knife edge.
There's obviously a minute, 2 minutes left, so our options were either kick it and back our defence, or we just try and look after the ball.
Stay bound.
Flash through your mind, you know, you flash through your mind thinking 207, we're going to go through this again. How's Rowan and the kids going to handle this? It was bloody hard in 207, I tell you. How's Mum going to handle this? Can we live in this country?
first emotion was just, thank Christ for that. It's all over, you know, just huge relief. How I'm meant to be happy now. I was just that shattered that I was just happy it was over.
You know, the first things I thought about were family, players, and my old mates sitting beside me.
I feel relieved because you're not just doing it for yourself. And you'd put a lot into it, and you could see the relief in everybody, in the public. You know, the joy that you'd given those people was amazing.
Yeah, just, you know, amazing to be able to share it with them, and then, yeah, really proud to, you know, be a New Zealander.
It took every ounce of energy, both mentally and physically combined, that I was just, I was as shattered as I've ever been. But that's what winning a World Cup should be, shouldn't it? It should take you right to that limit.
Like, Richie's probably been the greatest All Black ever. He is a special boy. He's a special New Zealander because he's bright and he's brave and he's inspirational and he gives everything. So when he came off the field in the final, I looked at him and thought, he should be in hospital on a drip. He's got the ability to give every last ounce of everything that he's got. And I don't know anybody else who can do that. If he hadn't been playing with a broken foot, I don't think we would have won.
Who played the most destructive rugby against the weakest teams? I think probably you'd say New Zealand. You know, who played the 40 minutes of the tournament? I think you'd have to say New Zealand against Australia. Who played the most kaleidoscopic 20 minutes in the pool stages? When Carter was on the field, it was the All Blacks. A lot of people like cribbing New Zealand. Such a successful rugby nation, but you have to take into account the blows that New Zealand suffered during that tournament. You have to take into account the pressure that comes on psychologically in the final. And then when you look at the whole thing in context, I think it would take a churlish person to say New Zealand were not the best team.
I think if you look back and you say, is there anything we could have done differently? Is there anything we could have done better? In the end, you'd have to say no. We won. We hosted a great tournament. People came and had a wonderful time. The tourists, really loved it. We showcased New Zealand at its finest, and there was a lot of drama, and that added to the event. And maybe Richie was right. Maybe 8-7 was the right result, but 48-7 would have been easier on my heart.
The All Blacks are often being the best in the world, but without being world champions. And it's not the same. and world champions are special because you've got something to add to the All Black legacy.
Mum had sent me back to the 07 Cup, saying, you know, bring it home and win it. So we hadn't done that, but we managed to in the long run.
#1 team in the world over the last few years for a lot of that, you know, for a fair percentage of it. Every time everyone talked about it, it was, yeah, but you haven't won the World Cup. And it was just nice to be able to get rid of that but and put that to bed, really.